The Trump administration is pushing its trade partners to provide details of their best trade deals by Wednesday, according to Reuters. The push to accelerate trade talks, coming just weeks before President Trump's Liberation Day pause on tariffs, is set to expire on July 8th. Here to discuss, we've got Henrietta Treyz, Veda Partners Managing Partner and Director of Economic Policy. Always great to have you, Henrietta. 0 deals in 60 days by my count. When you talk to clients, what is their optimism based on? Because we are seeing optimism play out in the stock market right now.
It's really the same thing that it has been for months now, which is this trust in Trump mentality. So you either have folks that are in that basket, which is a good portion of Wall Street, or folks that think that the tariffs have to come off or think that they're so problematic that they're going to be forced off. And don't take the president necessarily particularly seriously. That's sort of the taco end of the spectrum. But the uncertainty and the very serious risk of uncertainty rising, especially as we migrate into sectoral tariffs and await a decision from no less than the Supreme Court about whether the IEEPA strategy can even be continued, is really causing a lot of permanent strain on the market in terms of monitoring the White House and monitoring these tariffs and what Japan or South Korea or the EU is saying. It's a lot, and sector analysts are getting their full share of paying attention to this now.
Well, so now you have a president that knows about the TACO acronym, and now we're all trying to figure out, all right, is that net good or bad for ultimately seeing some of these deals come forward, as clearly he doesn't like the question and he could be fuming at the Resolute desk as we speak, or maybe in Mar-a-Lago, wherever he finds himself today.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's super embarrassing, I think, for any president to have the rank and file or the stock market just not take you seriously on things like this and question your gumption. But the real issue, I think, is that whether the president cares or not, which is a question, for therapists, not economists, is more like, what should we expect to come next? So I don't really care if he wants to put tariffs on. I'm more concerned about, can he? So will the Supreme Court decide that he does not have the authority under IEEPA to impose tariffs? It's not a question, very interestingly, of whether or not fentanyl poses an emergent economic risk to the United States. It's whether IEEPA actually grants the president the authority to supersede Congress. So we're going to need to have that resolution. And then, unfortunately, what I'm seeing in tandem here is that we're slowly approaching the X date for Liberation Day 2.0, and we don't have any deals. Now, the White House is going to send a series of letters to what I estimate is probably about 125 different nations, just informing them of what their new tariff rate is going to be. So when you talk about investors baking in what's happening here, we are going to get information about 125 countries whose tariff rates range from 10% at the low end to 50% at the high end. And he's just going to blankly set those rates. So USTR is asking these nations to come to the United States and give them a reason to lower the rates from the 30, 40, 50% thresholds that are otherwise going to go into effect on July 9th. I think they want an excuse, they want a reason to lower them, and that's what they're asking for today.
And Henrietta, should we expect, when information about that letter comes out, should we expect the numbers to mirror the numbers that or at least the formula that led to the numbers that were announced on April 2nd with regards to those so-called reciprocal tariffs? Do we have any insight about what will lead to the numbers of those so-called reciprocal tariffs this time around?
This is reading tea leaves, and we're all doing our best to try to suss out what the president's ultimate goal can be here. I'm trying to take some guidance from the original China deal, where he wanted to bring rates down from 145% to 80%, and then ultimately Scott Bessent landed at 30%, 34%. What I'm expecting is for the Liberation Day tariff rate set out in those charts to drop by at least half. So in the instance of certain nations, there's a 50% tariff rate in effect. It just so happens that we do almost no trade with those countries. The one that I'm thinking of has $293 million worth of trade with the United States, and yet they're tariffed at 50%. There's not a rational explanation for that rate, because we're not buying goods from them, point blank, and we're never going to. So they need to find an opportunity to get those rates down. The letters and this request from USTR to get folks in, giving them their best offer to the president right now, is that excuse. And I think the ultimate impact is going to be that for those 125 nations, we see tariff rates come down by at least half. So if it's 30%, maybe the rate goes down to 15. If it's 50, I'm optimistic it goes even below 25%. But I think some of them are so outlandish as to have to get cut below where they are right now.
Henrietta, while we have you here, the Senate is also set to negotiate on what is called the Big Beautiful Bill here, and ultimately we will see what they chalk up and ultimately might send back to the House for approval here. What are your anticipations?
Sure. I expect with 70% odds that the Republican conference will be successful here. I'm expecting the bill to pass around the week of July 24th. So that sequencing is that it goes through the Senate over the next 3 or 4 weeks and gets to their floor with modifications, including material reductions to the House's cuts to Medicaid. They're probably going to have to tweak the SALT deduction, and they're going to cut in half the $572 billion worth of cuts they made to the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of those tax credits are really popular in states that are critical for the 2026 elections, including in Alaska, Maine, North Carolina. They need to maintain a lot of those tax credits because they're so job creating. And ultimately, that package will get sent back to the House at the end of June. It'll materially increase the deficit, and President Trump is just going to have to twist arms on the House side to get them to support it.
Henrietta, thanks so much for taking the time here with us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.